millions of people, completely stuck. They're going nowhere. And it's not just annoying, it's stealing their time. It's literally stealing their lives. I looked into the data because I was curious just how bad it really is. Beijing drivers lose over 100 hours every single year sitting in this mess. That's 4 full days of your life, gone. Just staring at the car in front of you. For decades, the answer was simple. Build more roads, build wider highways, build more tunnels. But it never worked. There's a concept called induced demand. It means if you build it, they will come. You build a new highway, and more cars just appear to fill it. You can't win. So here's the question that changed my perspective. What if the solution wasn't to build out, but to fly over? I'm Stickman Xing. I was born in China, I've lived in Hong Kong, and I'm here to explore the real story with you. Today, we're looking at a future where traffic is something you fly above. We're talking about China's flying taxis. And because this is a quiz channel, here are 5 questions for you. Listen closely, the answers are all in this video. Question 1. How many hours do Beijing drivers lose in traffic each year?
Question 2.
Question 2. What is China's plan to fill the sky with drones officially called? Question 3. Which company has the world's first certified passenger drone? Question 4. How long did an air taxi flight from Shenzhen to Zhuhai take? Question 5. How many takeoff sites does Shenzhen plan to build by 2026? Don't worry if you don't know the answers yet. That's the whole point. Just watch, and we'll find out together at the end. This is just for fun, okay? No prizes, just bragging rights. Let's go!
Welcome to Stickman's China Quiz. I'm KaXing, born in China, raised in Hong Kong, and the person behind the channel. By now, you probably already know Stickman Xing, our little visual guide who helps to bring each topic to life. Here's how it works. We research deeply, animate with AI, and end every episode with a quiz that puts you in the driver's seat. If you're tired of shallow headlines and want to truly understand China, you've come to the right place. No politics, no noise, just facts, stories, and curiosity. Join us as we discover the real China together.
To understand why we need flying taxis, you need to feel the pain on the ground. And honestly, I didn't fully grasp it until I visited Beijing during rush hour. It's a different world. China's cities have grown faster than almost anywhere in history. In 1980, only about 20% of people lived in cities. Today, it's over 65%. And by 2030, 1 billion people will call a Chinese city home. That's 1 billion people needing to get to work, to school, to home. I checked the numbers carefully because I wanted to be sure. According to multiple studies, including data cited by the Associated Press, the average commuter in Beijing can spend about 90 minutes a day just going to and from work. That's like watching an entire movie every single day, just sitting there. The cost is enormous. We're talking about wasted time, wasted fuel, lost productivity. Cities lose billions of dollars every year to traffic congestion. But the real cost, the one that's harder to measure, is the human cost. The parent who misses their kid's bedtime, the medical delivery that arrives too late, the small business that can't get supplies, the stress that just never stops. I was curious if building more roads actually helps, so I looked into it. And that's when I found this concept called induced demand. It's a trap. Here's how it works. You have a congested road. The government spends billions to widen it. For a few months, traffic flows better.
Many months later.
Then, Because the road is wider, more people decide to drive. New housing developments spring up along the route. Soon, the new road is just as clogged as the old one. You've spent billions and gotten nowhere. Cities like Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou have learned this lesson the hard way. They've built massive ring roads. Beijing has 6 of them, and still, the traffic is brutal. So
Only
when
one
you run
direction
out of
left?
space to
Up.
build sideways, the only place left is up. And the math here is simple, but mind-changing. A drive that takes 3 hours by car between Shenzhen and Zhuhai can take just 20 minutes by air. 20 minutes. That's not a small improvement. That completely transforms your life. That confused me at first. How can flying possibly be that much faster? But when you think about it, a bird flies in a straight line. Cars have to follow roads, go around mountains, cross bridges, wait at traffic lights. The sky has no traffic lights. I will be honest with you, when I first heard about flying taxis, I thought it was science fiction. Something from Blade Runner. But the more I researched, the more I realized this isn't a movie. This is happening right now. So when we ask why flying taxis, the answer is right there in that miserable traffic jam. The problem is so massive, the solution has to be on a completely different level. Hey, let me ask you something. How much time do you waste in traffic every week? An hour? 5 hours? 10? Drop it in the comments. I was genuinely shocked when I calculated my own time. It made me realize why this technology matters so much. So, who is actually crazy enough to build this future? I thought it might be one small company with a dream, but that's not the full picture. The entire country of China is backing this. They call it the low-altitude economy. And this is not a small project. This is a massive national strategy. I checked the official government reports because I wanted to get this right. In 2023, activities in airspace below 1,000 meters generated 506 billion yuan in revenue. That's about 70 billion US dollars. And that's just the beginning. Zhang Xiaolan, a researcher at China's State Information Center, predicts this figure will balloon to 3.5 trillion yuan by 2035, nearly $490 billion. The government has officially included the low-altitude economy in the 2026 Government Work Report as an emerging pillar industry to foster. Let me put that in perspective. They see this as important as semiconductors, AI, and quantum computing. That's the level of commitment we're talking about. So who are the main players building this future? I visited the data and identified 3 companies you need to know. First up, Yiheng. These guys are the undisputed kings of this space. Their drone is called the EH216S. It's the one you've probably seen in viral videos. It's a 2-person pod with 16 propellers on 8 arms. It looks like a giant egg flying through the sky. Here's what amazed me. That design with 16 propellers isn't just for show. It's all about safety. If one propeller fails, you have 15 others. If 2 fail, you have 14. The system is fully redundant. You can lose multiple propellers and still land safely. But here's the biggest flex. In 2023, Yiheng got the Chinese government to certify the EH216S as safe to fly paying passengers. Then, in 2025, they became the first company in the world to collect all 4 certificates: Type Certificate, Production Certificate, Standard Airworthiness Certificate, and Operation Certificate. No one else on planet Earth has done this. Absolutely no one. The specs are impressive. 30 kilometers range, top speed of 130 kilometers per hour, 25 minutes of flight time. And you can actually buy one on Taobao, China's Amazon, for about 2.39 million yuan. That's roughly $330,000. Next up, Autoflight. Their drone, called the Prosperity, looks completely different. It's like a small private jet. It uses a lift and cruise design, It takes off straight up like a helicopter, but then a rear propeller kicks in and it flies forward on wings like an airplane. The genius here is range. Those wings make it incredibly efficient for longer trips. The passenger version fits 5 people and has a range of 250 kilometers. That's a game changer for connecting cities. In February 2024, one of their cargo drones flew from Shenzhen to Zhuhai, a 50-kilometer trip over the Pearl River Delta in just 20 minutes. By car, that same trip can take 3 hours depending on traffic. By ferry, it's about an hour. 20 minutes changes everything. And then there's XPeng Aerot. These guys are on another level of imagination entirely. They built a real-life transformer. It's called the Land Aircraft Carrier. Here's how it works. It's actually 2 vehicles in one. The bottom part is a massive 6-wheeled truck, a cyberpunk-looking van with rear-hinged doors and a range extender engine that can go over 1,000 kilometers. Hidden in the back of this truck is a completely separate 2-person flying drone. You drive the truck to an open area, you press a button, the back opens up, and you literally launch the drone for the last part of your trip. I am not making this up. The flying pod is a 6-rotor drone with automatic takeoff, autonomous navigation, and a whole bunch of safety systems. The crazy part? They have over 7,000 global orders already. And get this, the company says the entire management team, including the CFO, has to fly the thing themselves before they deliver it to customers. That's commitment. They've already built a factory and plan to start deliveries in 2026. But it's not just these 3. Govey, the flying car unit of state-owned automaker GAC, just announced they received 2,000 orders worth over 3.3 billion yuan. The competition is intense. These companies show us 3 different visions of the future. EHang is building the city taxi short hops across town. Autoflight is building the long-distance shuttle connecting cities and regions. XPeng is building the crazy hybrid for adventurers who want both a car and a plane. And they're all racing toward the same goal. This is just the beginning of the story. We're only halfway through, and there's so much more to cover: how they build the sky highways, what happens when thousands of these are flying, and the huge challenges they still face. If you want to see the future being built, hit that subscribe button right now. It really helps me explore more topics like this for you. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so we have these amazing flying machines. EHang's egg-shaped pod, Autoflight's sleek, jet-like drone, XPeng's transformer. But here's a question that bothered me. Where do they land? You can't just put a flying taxi down in the middle of a busy street. You can't land on someone's car. You need infrastructure. You need new buildings designed for this new world. Enter the vertiport. It sounds complicated, but it can be as simple as the roof of a shopping mall, or the top of an office building, or a dedicated landing pad in a park. And in Shenzhen, they are building these things like crazy. In January 2025, EHang launched the world's first fully automated vertiport for the EH216S in Shenzhen's Luohu district. This facility has an automated 3-dimensional lift system. The drone is stored on the first floor, lifted to the roof for takeoff, and after landing, it's lowered back down for charging. No human hands needed. The Luohu district has a plan. It's called the Low Altitude Infrastructure High Quality Construction Plan, 2024 to 2026, and the target is ambitious. 100 takeoff and landing sites by 2026. Of these, 32 will be specifically for passenger-carrying aircraft. That's more vertiports than most cities have Starbucks locations. But here's the thing I had to dig into. Building the physical ports is only half the battle. The real magic, the thing that makes this all possible, is invisible. How do you stop hundreds, eventually thousands, of these drones from crashing into each other? How do you manage air traffic when every vehicle is autonomous and flying at low altitude through a crowded city? The answer is a giant AI brain. It's called Unmanned Traffic Management, or UTM. Think of it as air traffic control, but for drones. And it's infinitely more complex. Here's how it works. Every drone constantly broadcasts its exact location, speed, and direction. This data flows into a central AI system that uses 5G networks for real-time coordination. The AI creates digital highways in the sky. It assigns each drone a specific corridor, like lanes on a highway. It ensures no two drones get too close. It puts up virtual no-fly zones around airports, schools, hospitals, and government buildings. If one drone has a problem, say, a battery failure, the AI system can instantly reroute every other drone in the vicinity to clear a path for emergency landing. It makes decisions in milliseconds. It's like a video game, but with real people on board. I was curious about the legal side too. How does the government authorize all this? In December 2025, China passed a major revision to the civil aviation law. It's a comprehensive update, 16 chapters, 262 articles, and it takes effect on the 1st of July 2026. This new law is a big deal. For the first time, it explicitly requires that Airspace Division must consider the needs of the low-altitude economy. Article 74 says, "The Division of Airspace shall take into account the needs of civil aviation and national defense security, the development of the low-altitude economy, and the public interest." Article 225 goes even further. It requires the government to optimize the allocation of low-altitude airspace resources and establish and improve airworthiness certification, flight management systems, and standards that meet the requirements of low-altitude economy development. This is foundational. It means the low-altitude economy is now written into China's basic aviation law. It's not a temporary experiment. It's a permanent part of the transportation system. But let me be transparent with you. There are still real constraints. Currently, less than 1/3 of China's low-altitude airspace is open for civilian use. The military controls most airspace, and approval processes can be slow. The new law aims to fix this, but change takes time. In Guangdong province, only about 40% of the airspace is suitable for low-altitude flights, and in areas with high demand, the overlap rate is just 25%. That's a real bottleneck they're working to address. Building this digital infrastructure is an enormous challenge, maybe even harder than building the drones themselves, but China is moving fast. They're laying down the invisible highways for the future, one algorithm at a time. Here's what I find most exciting. This isn't just about replacing your car with a flying pod for your daily commute. That's part of it, sure, but the vision is much bigger. It's about adding a whole new layer to how cities work. Let me paint you a picture of what this could look like. You wake up in your apartment in Shenzhen. Your phone's AI has already checked traffic conditions, weather, and your schedule. It finds the fastest route to your office across town. You walk to the nearby subway station, ride for 3 stops, maybe 15 minutes. Then you take an escalator straight up to the roof of the station. A flying taxi is waiting for you. Fully charged, doors open. You get in, the doors close with a soft hiss, and 16 propellers start spinning. 12 minutes later, you land on the roof of your office building. A commute that used to take 90 minutes of stress and frustration now takes 30 minutes of peace. You arrive calm, not exhausted. That's the dream. And it's not science fiction. The pieces are being built right now.
It's being built right now.
But the vision goes way beyond commuting. Think about tourism. Yiheng is already doing aerial sightseeing flights in 20 Chinese cities. Imagine flying over the Great Wall from 1,000 feet up. Imagine seeing the Shanghai skyline at night from the air. Imagine floating over the karst mountains of Guilin. This creates an entirely new way to experience China's beauty. In Dunhuang, the ancient Silk Road city, famous for its Buddhist caves and sand dunes, they're planning trial sightseeing flights for July 2026. Tourists will be able to see the desert from above. That's the kind of experience people will travel across the world for. Think about logistics. This is actually happening right now. In Shenzhen, you can order bubble tea or burgers on your phone and have them delivered by drone. I'm serious. Polish tourist Karolina Trzańska tried it recently. She ordered bubble tea and lemon tea, and about 30 minutes later, a drone buzzed through the drizzle and delivered her drinks. She said, "This is the first time I'm seeing something like this, so it was super fun." The cost is still higher than traditional delivery, but the experience is attracting huge curiosity, especially from young people and tourists. Companies like ZTO Express have already ordered 30 of Autoflight's cargo drones for their logistics network. These larger drones can carry payloads of up to 400 kilograms between warehouses, flying right over all the traffic on the ground. Think about medical emergencies. This is where it gets really powerful. Imagine there's a heart attack patient in a remote village. The roads are bad. An ambulance would take 2 hours. But a medical supply drone can fly there in 20 minutes with defibrillators and medicine. Or imagine a natural disaster, an earthquake, a flood where roads are destroyed and bridges are down. You can send in rescue drones instantly. They can assess damage, deliver food and water, or even evacuate people. Think about cross-sea travel. In 2025, an EH-216 series drone successfully crossed the Qiongzhou Strait, the body of water between mainland China and Hainan Island. The flight covered 2 kilometers from Haikou to Zhanjiang. It took 18 minutes. By traditional ferry, that trip takes 60 to 90 minutes. The drone was 70% to 80% faster. This is the low-altitude economy in action. It's not just one thing. It's a whole ecosystem of applications. The government's targets are staggering. By 2030, they want 100,000 eVTOLs operating across China. They want this network to carry 10 million passengers annually. The Civil Aviation Administration of China projects the low-altitude economy will be worth 1.5 trillion yuan in 2025 and reach 2.5 trillion by 2035. Let me put that 10 million passenger number in perspective. That's like moving the entire population of a major global city, think London or New York, through the sky every year. On autonomous drones, by 2030. I will admit, when I first heard these numbers, I was skeptical. They sounded too big. But then I looked at the investment, the policy support, the factory construction, the certification progress. And I realized this is real. They're not dreaming. They're building. Seeing all this makes me want to book a flight to Shenzhen right now. Actually, I'm seriously considering it. If you're as excited about this future as I am, give this video a like. It really helps the channel, and it tells me you want more content like this. Let's keep going. We have one more chapter, and it's about the hard truths. Okay, let's pause for a moment and be completely honest with each other. I've painted an exciting picture: flying taxis, AI-managed sky highways, drone delivery, tourism from above. It sounds incredible, but there are massive challenges, real ones. And if we ignore them, we're not telling the full story. So let's talk about the hard truths. First and most important, safety. This is the biggest challenge by far. If just one of these aircraft has a high-profile crash, especially in the early years, it could set the entire industry back a decade. Public confidence would shatter. Regulators would slam on the brakes. The companies know this. That's why EHang's drone has 16 propellers and full redundancy on all critical systems: flight control, sensors, motors, batteries. If one system fails, another takes over instantly. Many drones also have giant ballistic parachutes that can deploy and bring the whole aircraft down safely in an emergency. But here's the thing. In September 2025, there was an incident. Two XPeng eVTOL aircraft collided during a rehearsal for an exhibition. One of them caught fire upon landing. The company confirmed no one was hurt, but the incident led to the cancellation of flight demonstrations at another exhibition shortly afterward. This matters. It shows how fragile public trust can be. One incident, and suddenly people get nervous. The industry is walking a tightrope. There's zero room for error. Second, cost. An EH216S costs about $330,000. That's not a consumer product. That's a commercial vehicle for operators. Early commercial flights are expected to cost around $110 for a 20-minute trip. That's cheaper than a helicopter, but it's still expensive for most people. The company's promise that mass production will bring costs down. EHang is expanding its factory in Yunfu from producing 600 units per year to targeting 1,000 units. Autoflight and XPeng are also scaling up. Economies of scale will help, but will the price ever drop to something like a normal taxi fare? That's an open question. Guo Liming, co-founder of skyways, told reporters that their $100,000 prototype can only fly for 20 to 30 minutes before needing to be recharged. Battery technology is a major constraint. Batteries for eVTOLs need extremely high energy density while staying lightweight and not overheating. It's a much harder problem than for ground-based electric vehicles. Third, public trust. Let me ask you a personal question. Would you get into a flying pod with no pilot? Think about it. You're 1,000 feet in the air. There's no human at the controls. Just software. Just algorithms. You are literally putting your life in the hands of a computer. That is a huge psychological hurdle for most people. It's one thing to trust a self-driving car on the ground, where you can pull over if something goes wrong. It's another thing entirely to trust an autonomous aircraft in the sky, where failure could be catastrophic. Building that trust will take time. That's why companies are starting with sightseeing tours, short flights, low altitude, supervised conditions. Let people experience it, see it's safe, then gradually build confidence. Fourth, noise and environmental impact. The drones are quieter than helicopters. That's true. The electric motors make a humming sound rather than a deafening roar. But if you have hundreds of these things buzzing over a city every hour, what does that sound like? Will it drive residents crazy? Will there be noise complaints? Night flight restrictions? These are real questions that cities will have to answer.
We must review the night restrictions policy.
Fifth, regulation. Even with China moving fast, the rulebook is still being written. The new civil aviation law is a huge step forward. But implementing it, creating the actual systems, processes, and standards will take years. Currently, airspace access is limited. Less than 1/3 of low-altitude airspace is open for civilian use. The number of registered general aviation airports in China is about 1/10 of what the US has. That's a massive infrastructure gap. The government is working on it. Shenzhen is offering rewards of up to 15 million yuan for companies that obtain passenger eVTOL certifications. The military has pledged to simplify approval procedures. But change is slow. Gary Ng, a senior economist at Natixis, put it well. He said, "Everything is still in its early stages."
The economic data indicates a positive trend. This is driven by strong consumer spending. We expect continued growth.
The clear commercialization process will likely happen around 2030, but China has the advantage of being a latecomer but finishing first. Chen Wenhua, director at Hong Kong Polytechnic University's Research Center for Low-Altitude Economy, offered a balanced view. He said, "The future for the low-altitude economy is bright."
The low-altitude economy offers immense potential for growth and innovation. Our research aims to unlock these opportunities.
However, the road leading to that bright future might be treacherous. I appreciate that honesty. It's easy to get carried away with the excitement, but the reality is, this future will be built one safe, affordable, trusted flight at a time. There are no shortcuts. Okay, we've traveled through this future together. We've looked at the problem, met the builders, explored the infrastructure, seen the possibilities, and faced the hard truths. Now it's time to test your memory. Remember those 5 questions from the beginning? Let's go through them one by one. See how many you got right.
Let's review.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's presentation. I will be discussing the key elements. Let's begin.
Question 1. How many hours do Beijing drivers lose in traffic each year? A. 20 hours. B. Over 100 hours. C. 500 hours. The correct answer is B. Over 100 hours. That's 4 full days of your life, every year, just sitting in traffic. Question 2. What is China's plan to fill the sky with drones officially called? A. The Sky Highway Project. B. The Low Altitude Economy. C. The Flying Dragon Plan. The correct answer is B. The Low Altitude Economy. It's officially recognized in government work reports and the new civil aviation law. And it's projected to be worth 3.5 trillion yuan by 2035. Question 3. Which company has the world's first certified passenger drone? A. Autoflight. B. Xpeng Aerot. C. Ehang. The correct answer is C. Ehang. They became the first company in the world to receive all 4 certificates: Type Certificate, Production Certificate, Standard Airworthiness Certificate, and Operation Certificate for a passenger-carrying autonomous drone. Question 4. How long did an air taxi flight from Shenzhen to Zhuhai take? A. 20 minutes. B. 1 hour. C. 5 minutes. The correct answer is A. 20 minutes. Autoflight's cargo drone made this 50-kilometer trip across the Pearl River Delta in just 20 minutes in February 2024. By car, that journey can take 3 hours. Question 5. How many takeoff sites does Shenzhen plan to build by 2026? A. 10. B. 1,000. C. 100. The correct answer is C. 100. The Luohu District Plan specifically aims for 100 takeoff and landing sites by 2026, including 32 for passenger-carrying aircraft. How did you do? 3 out of 5? 4? Did you get all 5? Let me know in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. So here we are, at the end of our journey, and the big question remains, is this the future? Or is it all hype? What I've learned in researching this video changed my perspective. What's happening in Shenzhen, in Guangzhou, in cities across China, it's real. It's not a fantasy. The technology is certified. The launch pads are being built. The laws are being rewritten. The money is being invested. The Civil Aviation Administration of China has granted the certificates. Hang is flying in 20 cities. Autoflight has proven cross-sea routes. XPeng has 7,000 orders. The 2026 Government Work Report explicitly names the low-altitude economy as a pillar industry to foster. The civil aviation law now includes specific provisions for it. The hurdles are real too. Safety concerns, battery limitations, public trust, regulatory complexity, cost barriers. One crash could set everything back. The road is treacherous, as the experts say. But here's what stands out to me. Because China is moving this fast because the government, the companies, and the regulators are all aligned, they have a massive head start on the rest of the world. The journey from the first flights today to a sky full of taxis will be long, but the momentum feels unstoppable. Don't just take my word for it. See for yourself. China is opening up. Visas are becoming easier. Places like Shenzhen, Shanghai, and Guangzhou are building the future right now. If you get a chance to visit, come and see it. Walk through the Luohu vertiport. Watch a drone deliver your bubble tea. Look up at the sky and see the future flying overhead. It will change your perspective. It changed mine. I'm Stickman Xing. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe. I've got more stories about the real China coming soon, and I'll see you in the next one.